Chapter 701 Black Moon. You're saying it as if I'm trying to harm you. They wanted to deal with you from the beginning. I just used their mentality to set them up, Laina said. Then you must ensure my personal safety, Tom said. Why? Are you afraid of death? Laina asked. I'm not, but I'm heavily injured and can't fight against them, Tom said somewhat exasperatedly. Before, he wouldn't have been afraid. But this time was different. He was still heavily injured. If he encountered an assassination attempt, he would have no means to defend himself. Don't worry, I'll send someone to protect you, Laina said. Okay then. Tom nodded. Laina couldn't stay at the hospital all the time, so she arranged for some security measures near the hospital before leaving. Tom, I never thought you had such a tragic life, Aria exclaimed after Laina left. Yeah, I have a deep feud with Skyark Palace. I'll definitely get revenge one day, Tom said fiercely. You're alone now. How are you going to fight against Skyark Palace? Aria asked. My family has a peerless treasure blade passed down through generations. As long as I can retrieve it and master the technique, getting revenge will be easy, Tom answered. What? Your family has a treasure blade that's been passed down? What does it look like? Aria asked curiously. It's called Black Moon. It has a long and wide blade with immense killing power, Tom replied. Why does it sound so cumbersome? Is it easy to use? Aria asked. To unleash its full power, it requires a special blade technique. But I've only mastered the first segment of the Black Moon technique scroll. I still have a long way to go, Tom said. Your family even has a blade technique scroll that's been passed down? It sounds impressive. Aria's curiosity about Tom's background grew. Of course. The Black Moon technique scroll has a total of 7 segments. I've only learned the first, but it's already very powerful. Even my father only mastered 3 segments. With just that, he can deal with many strong opponents, Tom said proudly. So where's your Black Moon? Aria asked. She really wanted to see for herself just how powerful Black Moon truly was. Someone took it when the martial artists from Skyark Palace attacked us, Tom said, feeling somewhat discouraged. Ah, what a pity! I wanted to see how powerful this blade really is. It's frustrating that it was taken away, Aria exclaimed indignantly. Yeah, Black Moon has a long history. I'm afraid I won't be able to finish telling you even after days, Tom said. Really? Well, I'm not sleepy anyway. Why don't you just tell me? Aria asked. She was a little sleepy at first, but hearing about the blade technique piqued her interest. In short, this blade is very powerful. Black Moon is most powerful on the night of a full moon. It can absorb the energy of nature and condense it into a fierce beast. This blade has changed hands many times and was finally obtained by my ancestors. However, this blade has been stained with too much blood. My ancestors found it very ominous, so they always kept it hidden in a secret chamber. This also resulted in no one in our family being able to use this blade. When the martial artists from Skyark Palace attacked, Greenton was wiped out, Tom explained tirelessly. I didn't expect such a mystical origin. It's really beyond my knowledge, Aria exclaimed. She didn't expect that there were still so many elite families of traditional martial arts around, and such a legendary weapon. By the way, did your family's Black Moon technique scroll also fall into the hands of Skyark Palace? Aria asked. Tom shook his head. My dad gave me the scroll when I escaped. Can you let me see the scroll? I'm so curious, Aria asked. She was now filled with great interest in the things of elite families of traditional martial arts. Sorry, I didn't bring the scroll with me. Tom shook his head. Are you lying to me? You didn't bring such an important thing with you? I think you just don't want me to see it, Aria said, feeling annoyed. I'm not stupid. If I brought the scroll with me and was chased, wouldn't the scroll fall into someone else's hands? Tom retorted. He had long hidden the scroll in a very hidden place. Aria didn't continue to ask about the scroll. After all, this was his privacy. Tom and Aria chatted enthusiastically. They didn't feel sleepy at all. After Laina left, she originally planned to report the situation at the hospital to Caspian, but it was already midnight. She didn't want to disturb him. She planned to tell Caspian about what happened at the hospital the next morning. Caspian must be busy, and she couldn't trouble him with every little thing. The news of Wyatt's and Lanson's deaths quickly reached the Andrews family. Upon learning that his son's men had been killed, Jerry was furious. Zane, what's going on? How could 2 experts not take down an injured man? Dad, it's not as you think. They could have killed Tom, but something unexpected happened, Zane quickly explained. What happened? Jerry asked. There were 2 very powerful women in Tom's ward. They were the ones who organized the assassination of Wyatt and Lanson, Zane replied. Aren't your men eternal grandmasters? They couldn't even take down 2 women? How useless, Jerry said coldly. I just got the news. Those 2 aren't ordinary people. They're from Task Force Rose, and one of them is the captain, Zane reported. What, Task Force Rose, Laina? Jerry exclaimed in surprise. Yes, if they hadn't shown up, our plan would have succeeded. Zane sighed. This is bad. We've been targeted by Task Force Rose, Jerry said nervously. What's so bad about that? Zane asked. Task Force Rose is the most powerful and mysterious special forces organization in Diatoran. They're spread all over the country. If they find out Wyatt's and Lanson's identities, they can eventually find out about us. Isn't that bad enough? Jerry replied. Wyatt and Lanson rarely appeared. This time as well, they didn't bring anything that could prove their identities. You don't need to worry, Zane said. But what if Tom recognizes them? Jerry asked. Chapter 702 Top Secret Beheading Operation. Even if Tom recognizes them, it doesn't matter. They can't find the whereabouts of Skyark Palace, Zane said. The intelligence network of Task Force Rose is extensive. As long as there's a clue, they'll conduct a widespread search. If they find out that Skyark Palace is connected to us, Lord Caspian will definitely know about it. We'll be accused of rebellion, and then we'll have no way to defend ourselves. Our entire family may be doomed, Jerry said solemnly. Dad, don't scare me. Is it really that serious? What should we do then? Zane was frightened and at a loss. You were too careless. I have no idea what to do either. Jerry shook his head. How could I have known that Task Force Rose would be around Tom? If I had known, I would have sent innate grandmasters over, Zane retorted. It's too late to say anything now. We can only hope Tom didn't recognize Wyatt and Lanson, Jerry said. How about this? I'll send some innate grandmasters to take care of Tom. This way we don't have to worry anymore, Zane suggested. It's too late now. Sending people over won't help. Besides, Task Force Rose will definitely send more people to protect Tom. If we send people now, it'll be like walking into a trap, Jerry said. Then let's launch a coup tonight. Zane gritted his teeth. We can't. The king is going to meet the 5 war gods. They'll all be by his majesty's side. If we act now, it's suicide, Jerry said. What should we do then? We can't just sit and wait for death. Zane was now completely out of ideas. We can only wait. Send people to monitor Task Force Rose's activities. We'll react accordingly if they make any moves, Jerry replied. All right. I'll send someone now, Zane said. The next day, Caspian received a call from Laina the moment he woke up. He knew that Laina must have something important to report to him. What is it, Laina? He asked. Lord Caspian, someone tried to kill Tom last night, Laina said. Is he all right? Caspian asked. Tom had helped him before, so he was very concerned about his safety. He's fine. I happened to visit Aria yesterday and encountered the 2 assassins. We killed them both, Laina said. Why would someone want to harm Tom? Caspian asked, puzzled. Tom is the son of Greenton's leader from West City, but Greenton was wiped out, and he managed to escape. Now, the other party wants to silence him, Laina replied. Greenton? What does that have to do with anything? Caspian was now completely confused. Laina then reported everything she knew to Caspian. After listening, he had a general understanding. Skyark Palace has recruited many martial artists. Anyone who doesn't comply with them will be killed. They may have some secrets, Laina said. Do everything you can to find this Skyark Palace. Get to the bottom of this, Caspian ordered. Okay, Laina replied. Also, send more people to protect Tom. Don't let anything happen to him, Caspian instructed. Yes, Lord Caspian. Then Caspian hung up the phone. He had to go and meet Balthazar next. Caspian went to the king's residence in Dord City with the other 4 war gods to meet Balthazar. This was a top-level meeting in Diatoran. The meeting was only attended by Balthazar and the 5 war gods. War gods, 4 countries launched attacks on Diatoran this time, but we defeated them all. This battle has caused heavy losses for Diatoran. However, these countries have shown no remorse and are unwilling to compensate. I called everyone here today to discuss what Diatoran should do next, Balthazar stated. Your Majesty, I believe we should capitalize on our victory and launch a military campaign to increase Diatoran's prestige, the champion of East Eredlands, Cath said. I'll agree, Your Majesty. We must make them acknowledge our strength, the champion of North Eredlands, Benjamin, spoke up as well. Since they started it first, we must retaliate, the champion of Central Plains, Joseph said. Your Majesty, as you said in the rally before, we must make Vedesia, Astronia, Filren, and Estria pay the price. They started the trouble, but now they show no remorse. If we don't make them suffer a bit, it'll make Diatoran look bad, the champion of West Ireland's Dax suggested. Well said, all 4 of you. Balthazar applauded as 4 of the war gods agreed to launch a military campaign. This time, Balthazar invited only the 5 war gods to the meeting for a reason. If other high-ranking officials held opposing views, it would make the situation complicated. But Balthazar knew that the 5 war gods were all courageous individuals, and they would definitely agree to send troops. This meeting was of the highest level. The person responsible for documenting the meeting was omitted as well. Now, only the Diatoranian god of war, Caspian, had not yet expressed his opinion. Caspian, what are your thoughts on this? Balthazar looked at Caspian and asked. Your Majesty, I believe that once we start a war, many people will suffer. Our expedition will be detrimental to the people, Caspian replied. Balthazar and the other 4 war gods were surprised that Caspian held opposing views. Caspian, casualties are inevitable in war. I'm thinking about the future of Diatoran. Only by eliminating those belligerent opponents can we achieve long-term development peacefully, Balthazar said. I understand Your Majesty's desire to expand our territory through this opportunity, but I believe this isn't the right time. An expedition is a waste of manpower and resources, Caspian expressed his opinion. Do you have any better ideas? Balthazar asked. I believe that winning without going to battle is the best strategy, Caspian said. How is that possible? Balthazar was puzzled. Cut off the head of the snake and the body will die. We can carry out a beheading operation, Caspian voiced his thoughts. This was the safest, least costly plan he could come up with. Upon hearing this, Balthazar and the other 4 war gods were stunned. As long as we can assassinate their higher, they'll be leaderless and will definitely surrender to us. If they resist stubbornly, we can still send troops later, Caspian continued. This is a genius plan, Caspian, but it seems to be a difficult one too. Their higher-ups must have guards protecting them. It's not easy to assassinate them, Balthazar expressed his concern. I can't be certain, but this plan is definitely the one with the least losses. We can only take this gamble for the big picture, Caspian said. Chapter 703 Implementing 2 operations simultaneously. I think Lord Caspian's plan is very good and worth a try, Benjamin replied. I also think Lord Caspian's strategy is excellent, but completing this plan is too difficult, Joseph said. Lord Caspian's proposal is dangerous. A single mistake can be deadly, but the reward is immense, Dax also said. The several war gods expressed their opinions. Balthazar was in a dilemma once again. Each person had their own arguments, and he didn't know whose advice to follow. Each one seemed to have a point. Caspian, I'd like to hear more about your opinion, Balthazar said. This plan carries great risks, but I think we shouldn't hesitate. We have many talented individuals in Diatoran who can attempt it. Besides, we can operate in secret so that the other countries won't be prepared. The chance of success is very high. Even if they choose a temporary leader when we infiltrate, it won't matter. We can take advantage of their instability and strike at them, Caspian explained. Balthazar and the 4 war gods nodded. They thought Caspian's reasoning was sound. That's a well-thought-out strategy, Lord Caspian. You're really incredible. I think this plan is feasible, Joseph said. I agree. I have no objections either. The others expressed their opinions. Since everyone is in agreement, let's go with this plan, Balthazar concluded. I plan to personally lead and execute the beheading operation, Caspian said. Upon hearing this, Balthazar and the others were astonished. They were surprised that Caspian wanted to personally lead the operation. Caspian, you're the head of the 5 war gods and the backbone of Diatoran. You absolutely cannot put yourself in danger, Balthazar said. That's right. You can't take risks, Lord Caspian, Joseph said. Lord Caspian, you're the pillar of the military and also our chief commander. Any mishap to you would be a deadly loss for Diatoran, Benjamin voiced. It's better if I go. Even if something happens to me, it won't affect the overall situation, Cath spoke up. Caspian, you can't be impulsive. As you said earlier, Diatoran has many talented individuals who can handle the mission. How can we let you take such risks? Benjamin said. Everyone disagreed with Caspian personally taking action. Since I proposed this plan, I should be the one to execute it. My strength has improved a lot now. I'm the most suitable for this operation, Caspian said confidently. Caspian, you're being too impulsive. Even if you manage to assassinate the higher ups of the enemy, how will you withdraw? No matter how capable you are, the enemy has guns and cannons. How will you defend yourself? Balthazar asked seriously. First, Caspian was momentarily speechless. He hadn't considered the withdrawal aspect. I know you're loyal and courageous, always at the forefront of battles. But I must stop you this time. You're not an ordinary soldier, you're the Diaturanian god of war. War gods shouldn't be tasked with assassination missions, Balthazar said. His Majesty is right. You should calm down first, Lord Caspian. Your loyalty is unquestionable, but this mission is too risky. Let someone else go. That's right. We have many special forces members in Diatoran. We can let them execute the plan. Lord Caspian, you're a model for the entire army. Nothing can happen to you. Otherwise, the soldiers will be affected. The other 4 war gods all advised against it. All right, I'll think about it again, Caspian said. Upon hearing this, Balthazar and the other war gods were relieved. Let's discuss the specific action plan for the beheading operation. Who should we start with? Balthazar pondered. Videsia and Astronia are quite far away from us. Even if our people go to assassinate them, it'll be difficult to escape unscathed, Caspian said. Do you have an answer in mind, Caspian? Balthazar asked. We can start with Estria. As long as we can behead the higher-ups of Estria, it'll definitely deter the other countries. Estria is closest to Diatoran, and we can provide support for the operatives, Caspian replied. Then let's go with your suggestion. But who should execute this operation? Balthazar asked. This task was of great importance and required individuals with a strong mentality. I have 2 people in mind. One is the leader of Task Force Rose, Laina Barnes, and the other is the captain of Phoenix Vanguard, Macy Osborne. Both of them are quite capable, Caspian suggested. Task Force Rose is responsible for infiltration and surveillance anyway. Laina is very suitable for this operation. Macy might not be as suitable. I'm a little worried, Balthazar said. I've already considered this, but currently, they're the most suitable. I can't think of a third person unless I go myself, Caspian said. Drop that idea, Caspian. I won't let you take such risks. Can't Task Force Rose send another person for the mission? Balthazar asked. Although the members of Task Force Rose are quite capable, none of them compare to Macy. She's the captain of Phoenix Vanguard and has successfully completed many difficult missions before. Moreover, she's an excellent marksman, Caspian said. Since you've already considered this, let's proceed according to your suggestion, Balthazar said. Okay, after the meeting, I'll talk to them about how to carry out the mission, Caspian replied. The beheading operation will be under the complete command of Caspian, Balthazar concluded. This operation must remain confidential. No one outside of this room should know about it. Understood, the 5 war gods responded in unison. Is there anything else? If not, everyone can go about their business, Balthazar asked. Your Majesty, I have one more thing to say, Joseph replied. Yes, Joseph, please speak, Balthazar said. If we carry out the beheading plan, the enemy will definitely send someone to assassinate you. You should be careful, Your Majesty, Joseph expressed his concern. There are many people who want to assassinate me. It has happened several times before, but I believe that Diatoran's guards can protect me well, Balthazar reassured. In that case, let's increase the manpower at the king's residence to protect His Majesty. This way, everyone won't have to worry, Caspian said. Yes, let's do that for now. Everyone can go about their business now, Balthazar concluded. After Caspian left the king's residence, Macy came to pick him up. Macy, I have a very difficult task for you. I think you're very suitable for it. Do you want to take it up? Caspian asked. Lord Caspian, I'll complete any task you give me, even if it means sacrificing my life. Just tell me what kind of person I need to deal with, Macy replied. It's a beheading operation. I want you to assassinate the king of Filrin, Caspian said. Upon hearing this, Macy was stunned. She was very surprised that Caspian would give her such a task. Chapter 704 Preparations before the beheading operation. Why the sudden decision to assassinate the king of Filrin, Lord Caspian? Macy asked. Cut off the head of the snake and the body will die. Only by doing so can we minimize our losses, Caspian replied. You're the most suitable person for this mission. We have plenty of skilled individuals in Diatoran. Am I the only one who can carry out such an important task? Macy said with a hint of pride. Don't get ahead of yourself. There are people more capable than you, of course, like Laina. She's the best at assassination, Caspian said. Then why don't you send Laina? Why me? Macy didn't like hearing that Laina was more capable than her. Because she has a more difficult mission, Caspian replied. What? She has a mission too? Macy asked. Yes. Her mission is to assassinate the king of Estria, Caspian said. Lord Caspian, are you planning to carry out 2 operations simultaneously? Macy asked in surprise. Yes, this operation is highly confidential. We won't launch a military campaign but execute a beheading operation. Caspian nodded. But Estria is just a small country. Isn't Filren more difficult to deal with? Macy said, displeased. Although Estria is small, there's a vast ocean between Diatoren and Estria. It'll be difficult to return after a successful assassination. You're going to assassinate the king of Filren. Even if something goes wrong, I can immediately send troops to rescue you, Caspian explained. Both of these missions are not simple. Macy sighed. I hope you'll be cautious and complete this mission well. Remember, this mission is top secret. Don't disclose it to anyone, Caspian said. Do you think I'm still a child, Lord Caspian? Of course, I'll keep it a secret. Macy nodded. The beheading operation needs careful planning. Let's return to South Lake City first. We'll call Laina over and discuss the plan, Caspian ordered. Roger. Macy and some armored soldiers escorted Caspian to the airport to return to South Lake City. Upon arriving in South Lake City, Caspian went straight to the South Aridlands war zone and summoned Laina. When Laina saw only Caspian and Macy in the command center, she knew that Caspian must have something extremely confidential to discuss with her. Lord Caspian, why did you call me over in such a hurry? What's the matter? Laina asked. I need you to carry out a very important mission, Caspian replied solemnly. What is it, Lord Caspian? Whatever the mission, I'll give it my all, Laina said. I want you to go to Estria and assassinate their king, Caspian stated without beating about the bush. What? That's so sudden! Laina was shocked. She couldn't believe that Caspian would assign such a dangerous mission to her. What's wrong? Do you have a problem with that? Caspian asked. No, it's just too sudden. I haven't heard you mention it before, Laina said. This plan was just finalized after my meeting with His Majesty. It was unanimously decided that we won't launch a military campaign but instead execute a beheading operation. After thinking it over, I believe only you and Macy are most suitable for this operation. You'll go to Estria, and she'll go to Filren. Caspian explained the contents of the beheading operation. I see. I can give it a try, Laina said. This mission is extremely dangerous, and you may lose your life. You have the right to choose. If you don't want to go, I'll find someone else. Caspian looked at Laina and said. He certainly wouldn't force Laina. Such missions were extremely perilous. It was natural for people to cherish their lives and be afraid. Are you mocking me, Lord Caspian? When have I ever been afraid? As long as you give the order, I'll be the first to charge out, Macy said firmly. Caspian said, Good, both of you are the best indeed. If you complete this mission, you'll be heroes of Diatoren. I called you here today to discuss the detailed plan with you. Do you have any opinions? First of all, entering these 2 countries will be a challenge. We must not arouse suspicion, Laina said. Yes, you must infiltrate these 2 countries stealthily. I'd like to hear your suggestions, Caspian agreed. Lord Caspian, we can disguise ourselves and enter these 2 countries as long as we have proper identification, Laina suggested. I can take care of the identification. As for disguises, you'll have to figure it out yourselves, Caspian said. I need to develop a detailed action plan, as well as a plan for withdrawal after a successful assassination. Also, I need to find out the lifestyles of the enemy's higher-ups to facilitate our approach. Laina had executed many assassination missions and was very familiar with this process. Alright, I'll give you a day. Once everything is ready, I'll summon you again, Caspian said. Okay. Laina and Macy nodded. Lord Caspian, what about Skyark Palace? Laina asked. Skyark Palace is just a big name. In reality, they're just a bunch of unruly people. Right now, the most important thing is to carry out the beheading operation. Once the operation is completed, we can deal with Skyark Palace, Caspian said. He didn't take Skyark Palace seriously at all. After that, Laina left the command center while Caspian returned with Macy to Riverside Villa. Willow, Sherry and Cecilia smiled when they saw Caspian return. After returning to her residence, Laina immediately contacted her undercover operatives in Estria and Filren. She wanted to gather information about the lifestyle habits of the enemy's higher UPs. She worked overtime to formulate a detailed plan. In the evening, Jerry called his 2 sons over again. Dad, all the 5 war gods have left Dord City. Only the king is left. Now is the best time for us to act, Zane suggested. Although the 5 war gods have left, we still cannot mobilize our troops, Jerry said. Why not? I think this is the perfect timing, Zane asked in confusion. I'm worried about Caspian. Even though he's not in Dord City, if he hears that the king is in danger, he'll definitely rush over at once. There was a rebellion in Dord City before, and it was Caspian who resolved it. He's too strong. We need to be cautious, Jerry explained seriously. In that case, why don't we send the innate grandmasters of Skyark Palace to assassinate Caspian, Kelvin suggested. Caspian is protected by armored soldiers and he's a powerful figure all on his own. It won't be easy to assassinate him. Jerry frowned. Chapter 705 Infiltrating Estria. Members of Skyark Palace aren't weak either. Several of them are innate grandmasters. They can definitely take down Caspian, Kelvin said confidently. You youngsters always act impulsively. The gods of war from Vedesia and Astronia both died at Caspian's hands, and he came back unscathed. From that alone, you can tell how powerful Caspian truly is, Jerry remarked. Dad, Robert and Victor weren't deserving of their reputation. They only knew some superficial skills. Everyone in Skyark Palace is highly skilled. Also, we have Greenton's peerless treasure blade Black Moon. Kelvin continued, it's incredibly powerful. If we have an innate grandmaster skilled in using blades, we might be able to kill Caspian. I've heard that Caspian has a diatanium dagger. We can make that ours too. Who in Skyark Palace is the best with a blade? Jerry asked. The head of Raging Blade, Darren Everett. His blade technique is excellent, Kelvin replied. Is he confident enough to defeat Caspian? Jerry asked. I've discussed the matter of killing Caspian with him before. He admitted that he's not completely confident because he hasn't fully mastered Black Moon. Since he doesn't know the blade technique to master it, he can't unleash its full power, Kelvin answered. If he's not completely confident, then we can't let him go assassinate Caspian. If Black Moon falls into Caspian's hands, it'll be troublesome, Jerry remarked. We haven't found the Black Moon technique scroll even after digging through Greenton's place. It's possible that it's just a rumor and that the scroll may have been lost. We can't keep waiting like this, can we? Kelvin expressed his frustration. He didn't know what to do next. Is there a possibility that the Black Moon technique scroll is with Tom? Jerry asked. I think it's highly possible that Tom took it with him. Zane nodded. We only have one chance to assassinate Caspian. It must be flawless. If we fail, we'll be in dire straits, Jerry said. Then I'll continue to have people go after Tom and threaten him to hand over the Black Moon technique scroll, Kelvin suggested. We failed in our last operation, and they're probably on guard now. Caspian has likely increased security to protect Tom. It'll be a suicide mission if we go after Tom now. We can't act rashly for the time being, Jerry advised. So do we just wait? Kelvin asked. Yes, we need to observe the situation first. Jerry nodded. They absolutely couldn't act recklessly. The next day, Caspian summoned Laina and Macy to the command center again. Laina explained her plan to Caspian. After listening, Caspian nodded. Very well. The plan is perfect. We'll proceed according to your plan. Okay, Laina replied. Macy, do you think the plan is feasible? Caspian asked. Lord Caspian, I have no objections. Captain Laina's plan is meticulous, and the 2 assassination plans are also viable. With this plan in place, I guarantee we can accomplish the mission. Macy nodded. Good. Then proceed with the operation. You both depart now and carry out the beheading operation, Caspian ordered. Yes, Lord Caspian. Macy and Laina replied in unison. Caspian personally escorted the 2 to Southlake Airport and handed them the prepared identification documents. I await your return. Caspian bade farewell as he watched them leave. Rest assured, Lord Caspian, we won't disappoint you, Macy assured. Lord Caspian, since I became the captain of Task Force Rose, I've never failed a mission. There won't be an exception, Laina stated. Although both of them promised to complete their missions, they knew how dangerous it was. This could be their last mission. Take care, Caspian said. At this moment he suddenly felt a sense of sorrow. He saluted Laina and Macy. He knew their missions were extremely dangerous. Although Laina had a detailed plan, it was still extremely risky. If anything went wrong, Laina and Macy would be in grave danger. They were risking their lives to carry out this plan, which was commendable. Macy and Laina also saluted Caspian before turning around and boarding their respective aircraft. Macy went to West Eredlands while Laina went to East Eredlands. Since the operation had to be kept secret, Sean didn't inform anyone else. This top-secret operation was only known to Balthazar, the 5 war gods, Macy and Laina. Macy arrived in West Aridlands first. The champion of West Aridlands, Dax, personally welcomed her and prepared some items for the assassination plan. Similarly, the champion of East Aridlands, Cath, also provided Laina with necessary supplies. The next day, Macy and Laina both successfully infiltrated the countries. 2 days after Laina entered Estria, the king of Estria, Valeric Sharp, happened to be preparing to inspect the army. At this moment, in a hotel near Valeric's residence, a woman in a leather jacket was aiming a sniper rifle into the distance. That person was Laina. Laina had found out Valeric's daily itinerary and knew that this was the perfect sniper spot. Laina entered the hotel disguised as a businesswoman. At this time, soldiers had already gathered outside Valeric's residence. 10 minutes later, Valeric's guards came out first. They carefully surveyed their surroundings. After confirming that there was no danger, they came to the side of Valeric's car and waited. Laina knew that Valeric was about to come out. She immediately aimed at the gate. Sure enough, 2 minutes later, Valeric emerged with many high-ranking officials. When Laina saw Valeric, her breath quickened. This was her first time assassinating such a high-profile figure, so she was a bit nervous. However, she couldn't act directly as there were guards surrounding Valeric. She had to wait for the right moment. Laina patiently watched, waiting for the perfect opportunity because she only had one chance. She had to kill him in one shot. If she failed, she wouldn't have a second chance. Once the guards realized what was happening, they would be on her tail. Valeric prepared to board his car under the protection of many guards. Laina knew she didn't have much time left. Once Valeric got in the car, she wouldn't have a chance to act. Valeric quickly arrived at the car, and a guard opened the door for him. At this moment, a gap appeared in the crowd, revealing Valeric's position. Laina was overjoyed. She knew her opportunity had come. Chapter 706. The beheading operation begins. Due to her extreme nervousness, Laina's palms were sweaty. The hotel where she stayed was a bit far from Valeric's location. If there was any mistake, the assassination plan would likely fail. She only had one chance. As long as she could kill Valeric, Estria would suffer an unprecedented blow. The soldiers of Diatoren wouldn't need to sacrifice their lives anymore. The burden on Laina's shoulders was heavy. Right now, she could only try her best to calm down. The more nervous she was, the more likely she would make a mistake. After taking a few deep breaths, she finally calmed down a bit. Seeing Valeric about to get into the car, Laina was suddenly full of confidence. She pulled the trigger directly. With a suppressed gunshot sound, a bullet flew toward Valeric's head. It accurately hit his head, splattering blood everywhere. Valeric died on the spot. This specially made sniper rifle was incredibly powerful. The bullet pierced through Valeric's skull. The sudden scene shocked everyone present. They were all surprised that Valeric was killed in one shot outside the king's residence. It was such a heavily guarded place. Valeric collapsed against the car door, covered in blood. Many people were still in a daze, unable to snap out of it. "Call the medics now! Take His Majesty to the hospital!" a high-ranking official shouted. The soldiers started searching for the direction from which the bullet came. After seeing that she had successfully assassinated Valeric, Laina was extremely excited. However, she knew she couldn't stay any longer. She had to leave now. Estria's soldiers and guards would soon lock onto her location. Laina immediately dropped the sniper rifle and ran away. By the time she left the hotel, the enemy hadn't caught up yet. Valeric's assassination threw Estria into chaos instantly. The ordinary citizens didn't know what had happened yet, but they saw many soldiers panicking, seemingly searching for something. The soldiers searched the hotels and buildings one by one. By this time, Laina had passed through several alleys and then driven away. After investigating, the soldiers found the hotel where Laina stayed. There was a sniper rifle on the floor of the hotel room. However, the room was already empty. The soldiers immediately reported the matter. A high-ranking official immediately ordered to seal off Estria and arrest the assassin. Unfortunately, Laina had already escaped according to her plan. It would be very difficult for Estria's soldiers to find her. By the time the medical staff arrived, Valeric was already dead. With a bullet through his head, there was no hope of survival. The news of the king of Estria's assassination quickly spread. Since he was assassinated in front of his residence, it caused an uproar. Most importantly, the assassin hadn't been caught, and there was no information about them. However, many suspected Diatoren's involvement in the assassination. After all, who else would have a grudge against Estria? When Balthazar and Caspian knew that Laina had succeeded in the assassination, they were both extremely excited. Laina indeed lived up to expectations, seeing as she had successfully completed the mission. "Laina truly lives up to being the captain of Task Force Rose," Caspian exclaimed. Now that Laina had successfully completed her mission, he was somewhat hopeful about the situation on Macy's side. As the captain of Phoenix Vanguard, Macy had gone through many battles. Caspian prayed for her to complete the mission safely as well. At the same time, in the capital of Filern, the king of Filern, Camden Hughes, had just finished a meeting and was preparing to return to his residence. News of Valerix's assassination had also reached Filern. Camden was now extremely afraid, and had increased the number of guards protecting him. Dozens of armored vehicles escorted him back to his residence. However, on a rooftop near the residence, a woman in a leather jacket had already found a sniper point and was aiming at the king's residence. This woman was none other than Macy, the captain of Phoenix Vanguard. Macy had specifically investigated Camden's schedule for the day, so she had been here early to prepare for the shot. Seeing dozens of armored vehicles appear, she knew it was time to act. However, her heart began to race nervously. If she failed, she might die in Filern. Macy, having fought many battles with Caspian, had experienced many life-threatening situations. She had long since become indifferent to death. Since her chosen sniper point had a high vantage point, she could clearly lock onto Camden. The guards wouldn't be able to stop her assassination. At this moment, Camden's car arrived outside the residence. The armored vehicles stopped on both sides of the road as well. 6 to 7 guards stood beside Camden's car and protected him as he got out of the car. When Macy saw Camden get out of the car, her heart began to race. She stared at Camden through the scope. Although he had many people surrounding him, Macy could see everything clearly from her position. However, Macy knew that she only had one chance. If she didn't kill Camden with one shot, she wouldn't have a second chance. Macy tried her best to calm herself down and looked for the right moment to shoot. Since Laina had assassinated the king of Estria, Macy told herself that she didn't want to lose. She didn't want to be surpassed by Laina. At this moment, Camden had already walked up the steps of the residence. He was ready to enter through the gate. Macy no longer hesitated. She immediately aimed at his head and pulled the trigger. The same suppressed gunshot rang out, and a bullet flew from above, hitting Camden's head. Blood splattered on the spot, shocking the soldiers around. The king of Filern was also assassinated in front of his residence. Seeing Camden fall, Macy was overjoyed. She had also completed the mission excellently. Macy thought to herself that she wasn't inferior to Laina as a seasoned warrior. Since she had completed the assassination, there was no need for her to stay any longer. But it would take a lot of time to take the elevator down. Using the parachute she had prepared in advance, she jumped from the rooftop. At this moment, the soldiers around Camden saw the figure on the distant rooftop and immediately shouted, "The assassin is there! Get her now!" The soldiers drove toward the building where Macy was at full speed. "Call the medics," a general officer shouted. Although he knew that Camden was already dead, the protocol had to be followed. He couldn't just leave Camden lying there. Chapter 707 Hunted Down. The guards of the king of Filern knew they might be in deep trouble this time. After all, they had failed to protect the king. That general officer was furious and led his team toward the building where Macy was. Meanwhile, Macy was gliding through the air. She could already hear the roar of approaching armored vehicles. Her expression stiffened as she prepared to quickly find a landing spot and escape. After landing smoothly, Macy quickly located her vehicle parked on the street and drove away to escape. Her vehicle was a Lamborghini sports car, chosen for this mission. After a successful assassination, she needed to escape quickly so a sports car would minimize her travel time. These plans were all arranged in advance by Laina. At this moment, Filern's armored vehicles had already arrived in the vicinity. Macy was surprised as this situation was not part of the plan. When the enemy soldiers spotted a Lamborghini speeding away, they immediately targeted it. "That's the car! Open fire! We must capture her!" the general officer ordered. Gunshots rang out, and bullets grazed past the Lamborghini. However, Macy's expert driving skills allowed her to drift out of sight. The sudden gunfire resulted in many casualties among the pedestrians on the street, leaving the general officer in panic. Camden's murder weighed heavily on him. Now that many citizens lost their lives due to his command, it was unlikely he would be able to remain in Estria after this. "Cease fire and pursue immediately. Make sure to apprehend the assassin," the general officer commanded angrily. With the streets crowded, continuing to fire would only lead to unnecessary casualties. Filren's soldiers immediately chased after Macy in their armored vehicles. Despite their powerful vehicles, they couldn't catch up to Macy's Lamborghini. Macy drove at high speed, quickly outpacing her pursuers. "Convey my order. Seal off all the intersections and block the Lamborghini. We must capture the assassin," the general officer ordered. His men immediately made calls to the relevant departments and proceeded to block all the streets. Meanwhile, the general officer had to report Camden's assassination to the higher UPS. The sudden assassination of the King of Filen caused a stir. Just hours ago, the King of Estria was assassinated, and now the King of Filen too. The two assassinations seemed eerily similar, with no leads on the assassins. After knowing this, the kings from various countries, especially Vedesia and Astronia, started to be afraid. They had already linked this incident to Diatoran. After all, both Filen and Estria were previously involved in the attacks launched on Diatoran. However, no one expected Diatoran to retaliate so quickly. Another thing that surprised them was that the king of Diatoran would resort to such a risky method of revenge. The kings of Astronia and Vedesia were now in a panic, fearing they might be the next target. They remained holed up in their residences, avoiding any public appearances to ensure their safety. In Diatoran, Balthazar and Caspian quickly learned about Camden's assassination. While Caspian was initially worried about Macy's mission, he was relieved to hear of her success. The news of the King of Filen's assassination delighted the people of Diatoran. Previously, Diatoran was surrounded by enemies, and everyone was frightened. Now that the enemy's high-ranking officials had been assassinated, the people were naturally pleased. However, they also wondered who could be skilled enough to assassinate both the kings of Estria and Filen. Caspian, while pleased, was also concerned about Macy's and Laina's escape. He knew their departure would be challenging. Whether they could safely return to Diatoran depended entirely on their ability to adapt to changing circumstances. In Estria, Laina first made contact with the local agents and found a hidden location to lay low. With the country likely restricting travel, Laina knew she couldn't leave immediately. She had to wait for the right opportunity. Once she confirmed her safety, Laina contacted Caspian via satellite phone to assure him of her well-being. Caspian breathed a sigh of relief upon learning that Laina was now safe. However, the lack of any updates from Macy's side left him restless and anxious. In Filen's capital, soldiers went on a frenzy, searching for Camden's assassin. Despite Macy's fast driving, her vehicle was being tracked. Whenever she arrived somewhere, soldiers would converge on her location. As Macy drove to the prearranged location, she was shocked to find people waiting there. Immediately, she turned around and fled, but the enemy quickly realized and gave chase. Macy had no choice but to turn into another street, but she was pursued by many. She wanted to retreat, but it was proving difficult. However, Macy had already made up her mind to fight to the death. If she couldn't escape, she would take down as many enemies as possible, even if it meant her own demise. As she drove, Macy threw several grenades. When Laina was devising the plan, she had considered the possibility of unexpected situations. That was why the car was already stocked with various types of weapons. The pursuing enemy soldiers were caught off guard by the grenades. When they realized what was happening, it was too late. The grenades had exploded. The grenades exploded one after another, flipping several cars. The ones following closely behind didn't have time to brake and crashed into each other. The chain collisions triggered a series of explosions. In the end, the entire street turned into a sea of flames. The chaos caused by the explosions prevented the enemy from continuing the pursuit, giving Macy a chance to escape. However, at the next intersection, she encountered more blockades. Macy was completely stunned. Surrounded by enemies, she realized escape was impossible. With the entire city's military force mobilized against her, she knew she couldn't break through the checkpoints ahead. In desperation, Macy made a sharp turn and floored the gas pedal, bursting through the greenery. By the time the soldiers reacted, Macy had already escaped. She drove into an alley and continued to flee. Some soldiers immediately reported the situation to their superiors. The entire city was in chaos because of Macy's actions. Yet more and more soldiers were deployed to pursue and block her, including a dozen helicopters. Seeing the helicopters, Macy felt utterly hopeless. Just then, her communication device crackled to life with the voice of Coco Zeke, a member of Task Force Rose. "Captain Osborne, head to the agreed-upon location now. We'll escort you to safety." Chapter 708, Macy is arrested. It's too late now. I'm completely exposed. They've even deployed helicopters. If I come to you now, it'll only put you at risk, Macy said. Captain Osborne, you're saying that as if we're strangers. You successfully assassinated the King of Filren. You're our hero. No matter what, we'll get you back to Diatoran safely, Coco insisted. You've been undercover in Filren for a long time. If you're exposed because of me, it'll be a huge loss. It's better for you to continue your mission and contribute to Diatoran, Macy reasoned. But you're in danger now. If we don't help you, you'll be arrested, Coco urgently replied. Even if I meet up with you, you won't be able to save me. I think it's best for me to face this alone. At least that way, I won't compromise your identities, Macy insisted. Captain Osborne, time is running out. Stop hesitating and come over. We'll fight side by side. At that moment, a helicopter hovered above Macy's Lamborghini. However, the soldiers on the helicopter didn't dare to open fire recklessly. There were many pedestrians on the ground, and firing would risk hitting their own men. They were now responsible for reporting Macy's position to the ground forces for pursuit. Thank you, but I can't endanger you, Macy said before switching off the communication device. She drove on. Though she was fully aware of her predicament, she didn't want to drag others down with her. Even if a few more secret agents were involved, it wouldn't change the current situation. Macy had already resolved to face her fate. Captain Osborne! Captain Osborne! Please respond! Coco kept calling Macy, but there was no response. The streets were filled with vehicles blocking Macy's path. In a fit of anger, she stepped on the gas and rammed into the armored vehicles blocking her way. She'd rather die in battle than be captured. Seeing Macy's vehicle approaching at high speed, the Filren soldiers were all terrified. Open fire! Shoot out her tires! An officer shouted. Numerous soldiers aimed at the Lamborghini's tires and began firing. With that, a rapid succession of gunfire echoed. Bullets rained down like hail. Even the Lamborghini couldn't withstand the onslaught of bullets. The tires of the Lamborghini were instantly blown out. Unable to control the vehicle anymore, Macy could only let it plow forward. Just then, she quickly unbuckled her seatbelt. As she opened the car door, she jumped out of the vehicle, but the car was moving too fast. After Macy jumped out, she rolled on the ground several times before finally coming to a stop. The Lamborghini collided heavily with the Filren soldiers in the armored vehicle, triggering an explosion. After all, the Lamborghini's fuel tank had been shot, and there were many explosives in the car. The Filren soldiers were blown into the air. Limbs and body parts were scattered everywhere. Since Coco couldn't contact Macy, she had to call Caspian via satellite phone. Though her superior was Laina, Laina was also on the run, so Caspian was her last resort. The satellite phone connected quickly. Lord Caspian, this is Coco Zeke. I'm undercover in Filren, Coco said directly. Coco, what's the situation over there? Did you meet Macy? Caspian asked eagerly. The situation isn't good right now. Captain Osborne has completed the mission, but she's been targeted, Coco replied. Upon hearing this, Caspian was shaken. It was just as he had worried. Macy was in trouble. Why didn't you go to meet her earlier? Caspian asked. I just spoke with Captain Osborne. She says that her location is locked by helicopters. She refuses to meet us because she doesn't want to compromise our identities, Coco explained. Caspian's expression turned serious at Coco's words. Lord Caspian, should we go rescue her now? Please give us the order, Coco asked urgently. Macy is already being targeted. It won't help even if you go over, Caspian said helplessly. Are we just going to sit and wait? Is there nothing we can do? Coco pressed. Even if you rush over, you won't be able to rescue Macy. It's better for you to continue being undercover to minimize unnecessary casualties. Of course, Caspian didn't want to see Macy captured, but there weren't many options left. It was almost impossible for Macy to escape in this situation. Lord Caspian, we're not afraid to die. Please order us to rescue Captain Osborne, Coco said. She wanted to rescue Macy, but she didn't dare act rashly. Hence, she requested Caspian to give out the order. Only if Caspian agreed would she dare to proceed. No, you've been undercover there for many years. Sending you to your deaths would be too wasteful. You stay put for now. Report any news to me immediately. I promise you, bring Macy back safely, he reassured her. Understood. Coco didn't dare to disobey Caspian's orders. After jumping out of the car, Macy sustained several injuries from the fall. The explosion from the Lamborghini had just subsided. Now, the street was in shambles. Some soldiers were rushing toward Macy. With injuries slowing her down, Macy couldn't run away anymore. Though she didn't want to be captured, she had no choice now. In the end, the enemy soldiers took Macy away. With Camden assassinated, the new king of Filren, Byron Kester, immediately began giving orders. He decided to publicly execute Macy 3 days later, considering it revenge for Camden. Coco immediately reported Macy's capture to Caspian. "Lord Caspian, Captain Osborne has been arrested," Coco said urgently. "She has done a good job." "A captain indeed," Caspian exclaimed. Though Macy was arrested, it was still better than being killed. As long as Macy was alive, Caspian could find a way to rescue her. "By the way, Lord Caspian, the new king of Filren has ordered Captain Osborne's public execution." 3 days later, Coco continued. "What? Filren already has a new king?" Caspian was somewhat surprised. "Yes, what should we do now?" Coco asked. "Find out where Macy is being held. Once you have any information, inform me immediately. His Majesty and I will find a way to rescue Macy. If necessary, Diatoran will consider sending troops," Caspian ordered. Chapter 709 Siege by a Large Army. After hanging up the phone, Caspian immediately boarded a private plane to Dord City. Macy had gone through so much to complete her mission and successfully assassinated the king of Filren. But she was now arrested. Caspian was determined to do everything he could to rescue her. He needed to discuss this matter face to face with Balthazar. Upon arriving in Dord City, Caspian immediately met Balthazar, who was already aware of Macy's situation. "Caspian, what brings you here in such a hurry?" Balthazar asked. "Your Majesty, Macy has completed her mission, but she's been captured. I've come to discuss with you a plan to rescue her," Caspian said without preamble. "Macy is a hero. Of course, I want her to return safely. But rescuing her won't be easy," Balthazar replied. "I have an idea, but I'm not sure if you'll agree to it," Caspian said. "Stop beating about the bush. Tell me your idea," Balthazar urged. "Macy's successful assassination deserves recognition. We have to do whatever it takes to rescue her. We're holding tens of thousands of people from Filren captive in West Eredlands. We can use them as leverage to exchange for Macy," Caspian proposed. "That's a good plan," Balthazar exclaimed. "I was worried you might not agree." Caspian was surprised by Balthazar's swift acceptance. "This is not a difficult decision at all. Keeping those people in Diatoran is just a waste of food. It's highly worthwhile to exchange them to get Macy back. My only concern is whether Filren will agree to exchange with us," Balthazar said. "Let's contact Filren and see if they agree. If not, we'll reassess our options." "Agreed. I'll contact the new king of Filren," Balthazar said. "Thank you, Your Majesty. The people of Diatoran are fortunate to have a ruler like you," Caspian praised. "The prosperity of Diatoran is also thanks to your contributions. Macy has made a great contribution. Rescuing her is the right thing to do," Balthazar replied. Balthazar then instructed the intelligence department to contact the new king of Filren. Meanwhile, in Filren, they had already removed the silicone face mask Macy used for disguise. They had exposed her true identity as a Diatoran. When Byron received Balthazar's call, he said furiously, "Balthazar, you had people assassinate Camden. Why are you contacting me now? You were the ones who provoked us first. The conflict between us is far from over. I'll kill anyone I want. My people were able to assassinate Cameron, showing our strength. You're free to attempt the same against me," Balthazar retorted. Balthazar's confidence was evident. "Alright, I don't want to keep beating about the bush. I called to discuss something," Balthazar said. "What?" Byron asked. "We've been holding 50,000 people from Filren captive. Now, we're willing to exchange these people for Macy," Balthazar proposed. "No way! I must publicly execute her," Byron replied fiercely. "What? You won't trade 50,000 lives for one?" Balthazar was surprised by Byron's stubbornness. "I said no, and I mean it. Your secret agent committed a heinous crime. She must be executed," Byron insisted. "If it weren't for my agent assassinating Camden, you wouldn't have had the chance to take his place. You should be grateful for my secret agent." Balthazar spared no effort in trying to persuade Byron. "Cut that nonsense. No matter what you say, I won't spare her. I'll execute her publicly. Otherwise, I'll be ashamed to face the people of Filren," Byron declared. "If you dare to execute Macy, I'll personally lead an expedition against you," Balthazar asserted. "Go ahead and try. Do you think I fear you?" Byron replied arrogantly. "You'll regret your actions," Balthazar warned before hanging up. "Your Majesty, any news from Filren?" Caspian asked. "Byron refuses to negotiate with us. He insists on executing Macy no matter what." "Caspian, do you have any other plans?" Balthazar inquired. If that's the case, we have no choice but to take action, Caspian decided. Okay, get moving now and crush Filren, Balthazar agreed. Understood, Caspian nodded. Caspian, I hereby appoint you as the chief commander. Lead your team to Filren and ensure Macy's rescue, Balthazar instructed. Thank you, Your Majesty. I'll do everything in my power to rescue Macy, Caspian vowed. Time's running out, Caspian. Go and make arrangements now. The sooner we act, the better. We can't give them a chance to react, Balthazar urged. Understood, Caspian acknowledged before leaving Dord City. Instead of returning to the South Eredlands war zone, Caspian went directly to West Eredlands. This would facilitate the upcoming operation. Upon his arrival, Caspian was welcomed by the champion of West Eredlands champion, Dax. Caspian wasted no time and immediately began discussions with Dax on how to enter Filren. After considering several plans, Caspian made up his mind to take direct action. In the face of absolute strength, any elaborate maneuvers would be futile. Caspian mobilized many armored soldiers and Phoenix Vanguard for the mission. This didn't go unnoticed by Filren, who sensed something was amiss. They knew Diatoran would soon make a move. Balthazar decided to disclose a major piece of news to the media. He revealed that he had been willing to exchange 50,000 of Filren's people for Macy's life, but Byron had disregarded his advice. This news spread quickly, sparking outrage in Filren. Many opposed Byron's decision, as it could potentially lead to Filren's downfall. The families of the prisoners of war took to the streets, protesting and hurling insults at Byron. What could have been a reunion with their loved ones turned into a nightmare due to Byron's stubbornness. Even Filren's soldiers were discontent with Byron's decision. Balthazar's goal had been achieved. He deliberately spread this news to undermine Filren from within. Byron was caught off guard by the opposition to his decision. Just newly appointed, he now faced a siege by a large army, leaving him unsure of what to do next. Chapter 710 Lord Caspian leading the army. Some of the higher-ups in Filren were deeply dissatisfied with Byron. They all harbored ambitions to seize power themselves. Byron was only a king in name. He hardly had any military power at his disposal. So he quickly sought help from Vedesia and Astronia, hoping these two countries would assist him. However, both countries wanted nothing to do with him. Given the recent assassination of the kings in Estria and Filren, they were now only concerned about saving their own lives. They didn't want to get involved in anything else. The Diatoran assassins operated stealthily, leaving no trace behind. No one knew who would be the next victim. Thus, the kings of Astronia and Vedesia remained holed up, unwilling to show themselves. Byron was at a loss. He had no idea what to do next. At this moment, he regretted his decision to refuse Diatoran's proposal to exchange those prisoners of war for Macy. Yet changing his mind now would only invite criticism. Faced with a dilemma, Byron ultimately decided to proceed with Macy's execution. Likewise, Macy was filled with regret as she found herself a captive. She wished she had ended her own life at the critical moment, or perhaps crashed her vehicle into the enemy so that she didn't need to become a prisoner. She might have even become a hero of the people. Now that she had been captured and needed people from Diatoran to rescue her, she felt somewhat ashamed just thinking about it. Filren had uncovered Macy's identity and knew she was the captain of Phoenix Vanguard. Not only had Macy successfully eliminated Camden, but she had also inflicted heavy casualties on Filren's forces, earning their deep-seated resentment. They subjected Macy to severe torture, but she remained tight-lipped and didn't reveal anything. Byron ordered Macy to be imprisoned in Filren's most remote Death Mountain prison. She would be executed a few days later. Situated deep within the dense forests of the westernmost part of Filren, Death Mountain prison was heavily guarded by numerous soldiers. Not only was it incredibly isolated, but it was also highly fortified and housed some of the most dangerous criminals. No prisoners in this prison had ever managed to escape. Once Mary was incarcerated here, there was no way she could escape. However, she had no regrets. After all, she had successfully assassinated Canaton and inflicted significant damage on Filren's forces. Macy didn't think it was possible for Diatoran to rescue her. Anyone imprisoned here was doomed to die. Even if Diatoran were to intervene, there wouldn't be enough time to rescue her. Macy also didn't want anyone else to suffer or die because of her. By evening, the armored battalion and Phoenix Vanguard had arrived in West Eredlands. West Eredlands had almost 1 million troops. Now, the number was bolstered with Caspian's armored soldiers and Phoenix Vanguard. With 1 million elite soldiers poised and ready in West Eredlands, all they needed was for Caspian to give the order and they would march toward Filren. Caspian convened a meeting with Dax and the captain of the armored battalion to discuss the next course of action. He proposed dividing the 1,000,000 elite soldiers into 3 routes and advancing toward Filren simultaneously. This plan garnered general agreement among the assembled officers. Dax would lead a force of 400,000 troops advancing from the front. The remaining 400,000 troops would split into 2 groups, advancing from the left and right flanks. Lord Caspian, don't the armored soldiers Phoenix Vanguard and I have a specific task? Sylvia asked, puzzled. Caspian hadn't assigned them a task yet. You and the armored battalion, along with Phoenix Vanguard, have a crucial mission, he told Sylvia. What mission? I'll fulfill all your orders, Lord Caspian, Sylvia eagerly asked. You'll lead the armored battalion and Phoenix Vanguard to infiltrate the capital of Filren and rescue Macy, Caspian declared. Understood. Macy has rendered invaluable service to Diatoran. I'll ensure her rescue, but we don't know Macy's exact location. I'm afraid we won't make it in time, Sylvia replied. I've tasked Coco with investigating Macy's location. We should receive information soon, Caspian assured. As if on cue, an intelligence officer rushed in with a satellite phone. Lord Caspian, Task Force Rose's Coco is calling. Taking the phone, Caspian asked, This is Caspian. What do you have to report? Lord Caspian, I've located Captain Osborne, Coco said. Where is she being held? Caspian inquired eagerly. She's being held in Death Mountain Prison. It's heavily guarded. Should we proceed with the rescue mission? Please issue your orders, Coco replied. You don't need to worry about rescuing Macy. All you have to do is find the internal layout of Death Mountain Prison, Caspian instructed. Okay. I'll send you the layout shortly, Coco replied. Thank you. I'll await your update, Caspian said before ending the call. Turning to the assembled officers, Caspian announced, We've located Macy's whereabouts. She's imprisoned in Death Mountain Prison. I'll lead the armored battalion and Phoenix Vanguard to rescue her. The news shocked everyone present. No one had expected Caspian to personally lead the rescue mission. Lord Caspian, you're the chief commander of this operation. You can't risk yourself like this. You need to oversee the operation in West Aridlands, Dax urged. Yes, Lord Caspian. Filren is very dangerous now. Let me handle the rescue mission, Sylvia added. Lord Caspian, I heard that Death Mountain Prison is heavily guarded. As the chief commander, you cannot risk yourself, another general officer from West Aridlands cautioned. But Caspian had made up his mind. Don't need to talk me out. Performed admirably on her mission. I'll ensure her safe return no matter the danger. Lord Caspian, if you go to rescue Macy, who will command the overall operation? Dax asked. That task will fall to you, Caspian replied. But you're the chief commander. How about this? I'll lead the armored battalion for the rescue mission, Dax proposed. No, the armored battalion and Phoenix Vanguard are units I personally trained. Only I know their fighting style. You're better suited to oversee the situation in West Aridlands, Caspian insisted. Dax understood that he couldn't change Caspian's mind and reluctantly agreed. Lord Caspian, I heard that Macy is scheduled for execution in 5 days. Can we rescue her in time? Dax asked anxiously.